Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Hope you guys are all doing well. We've got a fantastic show on the way. But first, I just want to say thanks to NORD VPN, our sponsors here at the Everything is Black and White podcast, who without none of this would be possible. And we've teamed up with them to offer our listeners and viewers an exclusive offer. You can click the link in the podcast description box or go to nordvpn.com/tune to sign up and save your pennies on a plan. It is well worth your time to sign up. You are secure, you are safe, and you're supporting the podcast. Why sign up? I hear you ask. Well, there are a host of benefits. For me, it is the value for money because one subscription can be used across 10 devices. That's your work phone, your personal phone, your tablet, what have you. 10 devices, one subscription. I mean, that is the definition of value for money. The other thing I love about it as well is the way that it keeps your details safe and secure when browsing on public Wi-Fi. So if you're on the bus, the train, you're in a cafe and you're connected to their Wi-Fi, there is always the risk that your details could be compromised. That's your bank details, your passwords, and a load of other stuff as well. But with Nord, you are safe and you are secure. And that for me means a heck of a lot. And look, if you're going abroad as well and you're missing your home comforts and you want to keep with it with all your UK streaming services, then you can click the location back to the UK and make sure you never miss your favorite program. What is not to love about it? It's absolutely fantastic. Very simple to get on board. You download the app, you sign up, and away you go. You're keeping yourself safe, you're keeping yourself secure, and you're supporting the podcast at the same time. And another benefit, and I've already mentioned three, and there are a host of other things to mention as well if we had the time. But the final thing I'm going to mention is a 30-day money-back guarantee. So it's literally no risk. If you don't like it, get your money back. But you will like it because it's a superb app to have on your phone. Keeps you safe, keeps you secure. And once again, you're supporting the podcast. So click the link or go to nordvpn.com/tune to take advantage of an exclusive offer for our listeners and viewers of the Everything is Black and White podcast. Roll the titles. Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I'm Andrew Musgrove, and today we're going to take a closer look at Nick Woltemade, Newcastle's record signing, who of course joined in the last week of the summer transfer window. To get the insight into the big man, we've got a regular contributor to the podcast, Ben McFadyean, back on. He was on a couple of years ago, and as you might remember, as his shirt gives away the tale, he was on to give the insight into Borussia Dortmund as Newcastle faced them in the Champions League. Ben is a football journalist with a particularly keen eye on the Bundesliga, among many other interests. Ben, welcome back to the podcast. How are you keeping? Are you well?
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I was just saying I was up in Newcastle a couple of weeks ago and had a little walk around St. James's Park, and wow, what a beautiful stadium. Lovely, right in the city centre, really, really impressive. I never made it up for the game, so it was fantastic to actually go and see the ground.
Yeah, we love it. And of course, we are waiting on a decision to whether we're going to stay there for the next generation or we're going to move, and we'll wait with anticipation to see what the club do decide. But in the meantime, they've been spending a little bit of money and a lot of money on a certain man who scored 17 goals in the Bundesliga last season, Nick Woltemade. And Ben, I think there's so much to talk about, so many questions. But just first off, just your initial thoughts on this deal.
Well, I grew up in Dortmund, although I'm from the UK. And so obviously I have an affinity with German football. As you say, I write about German football. I research German football. And I think everyone in Germany really wants it to be a really good deal. Basically, Julian Nagelsmann has been missing a good number 9. Nick Füllkrug, especially as he's not getting much of a run out at West Ham, has not proven to be the striker. And back in the day, obviously, Thomas Müller has retired as well. So, at the moment, what Germany really need ahead of the internationals and going to the World Cup is a really good number 9. And so with the advent of Nick Woltemade this season, at what he's done at Stuttgart, people in Germany are very hopeful that Woltemade is going to be a very, very good striker, a potentially new Gerd Muller, Fox in the box, etc., etc. But I mean, obviously, you've been incredibly spoilt over the years with our former striker, Alex Isak, who we sadly sold for 8 million, just 3 or 4 years ago. So I think that, you haven't got a like-for-like replacement in Woltemade, because I think he's more of a player that plays a bit deeper and so on. But he has got a very uncanny knack in front of the goal and 2 very good feet. So, yeah, I think you've got a good signing, but obviously, as it's become, very last minute, you've had to spend a lot of money to get him. So at the end of the day, it's good that you've got very strong financial backing.
Yeah, we'll get onto the price tag in a moment, because that's sort of the only red flag for me. But then the thing that kind of dilutes that concern is the fact that Bayern Munich wanted him, and obviously they've walked away from the deal. But really, there's no bigger compliment than Bayern Munich wanting you, and that for me is a good sign. What happened there with the Bayern Munich interest? Because it seemed at one point that he was destined to go there, and then the deal didn't happen.
Yeah. So the issues at Bayern Munich, they replaced the recruitment director. A guy called Max Ebel came in from Borussia Mönchengladbach, and he has had some teething difficulties fitting in at the club. Previously, the big man, Uli Hoeneß, former player and so on, club legend, someone who was very established at the club. And I think that there's been a number of big misses. Florian Wirtz is another one. And then obviously this summer, again, Woltemade. Bayern generally hoover up the best of the quality that there is in the Bundesliga, which of course, as a Borussia Dortmund fan, is a big bugbear, that we're constantly delivering players like Mats Hummels or Robert Lewandowski or Mario Götze and other players that have moved in the past. So basically, I think that they have got recruitment issues. They haven't managed to reel in the players that they wanted in the last couple of years since Max Ebel came in. And I think what the feeling is that perhaps Max Ebel isn't quite up to it. And I don't like to say it, but I think that Woltemade was a pretty close miss. And he himself declared that it was the club of his dreams, the club that he wanted to play for. They pay about 70% more salary than Borussia Dortmund, who are the second highest paying salaries in the Bundesliga. So he would have been on exceptional money, and it would have brought in an amount of about 50 to 60 million euros, which is about 55 million pounds, to the club, Stuttgart. And I think that Stuttgart, possibly they weren't happy with the money. They've got a very good team in place there, and I think perhaps they were looking for more money. Normally you would say that they wouldn't want to give a player to a direct competitor, but I think in this case you could argue that Bayern Munich are head and shoulders above anyone in the Bundesliga right now under Vincent Kompany, and I think Stuttgart were just simply looking for more money, and they knew that they had a bit of time to play with. So. But at the end of the day, their loss is your gain.
Well, fingers crossed. I mean, on the price tag could be 69 million pounds, which is a huge amount of money. My first and only concern is the fact that he was signed on a free in the previous summer. Now that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but what do you make of the price tag, given the fact that I think it was Werder Bremen, wasn't it, that let him go on a free to Stuttgart just 12 months ago?
Yeah, they've overpaid for me. In my opinion, from what I've spoken to a lot of different people about this in anticipation of this question, and I think they've overpaid. My opinion, but I think it's very, very, very difficult because you were buying something last minute. You had the pressure of Alex Isak. You've got the money, and I think it is a lot of money. I really do. I really, really do. But at the end of the day, it's very difficult. Look, I mean, the basic opinion from observers in Germany is that he has had one good season, and he is an exceptional player, but he has had one good season. Before that, he was player of the year with Elversberg, but they were playing in the third division, in the League One equivalent. And he scored a lot of goals last season, 17 goals, which is very impressive. And he's certainly shown himself to be a very, very talented player. But he's not a classic number 9. He's not a one-for-one replacement for Alex Isak, and you've paid a lot of money. So I think you have to have realistic expectations. And from your perspective, I think, you can rest relatively assured because you've got Yohan Wissa in the background, who is a proven goal scorer, and I think he may end up slotting into the number 9 position. Just an opinion. I think the thing with Woltemade is he's got much qualities beyond just being a striker. In Germany, there's an old-fashioned expression which is one swallow doesn't make a summer, which basically means don't get ahead of yourself. And I think at the end of the day, it's premature. The guy's only had one good season. I mean, you've got a very good talent, but you're just going to have to wait and see what becomes of him, basically. And we just don't know. And the kind of money you've spent, that's twice what Dortmund have ever spent on a player before. And Dortmund are incredibly sharp in terms of their recruitment, incredibly sharp. So, you tell me, basically. It's Premier League. The Premier League is Saudi Arabia level now. It's insane. It's mental. Look, at the end of the day, you've got a quality player that's got a very diverse set of skills. And I think that as long as you don't have the expectation of a one-for-one replacement for Alex Isak, I think you've definitely got a player with enormous development potential that's got a very unique style and that can provide quality to your side in a way which you probably are not expecting. But I think it's very good that you've got Yohan Wissa, who is a proven goal scorer in the background, who may well slot into Alex Isak's kind of position as a number 9. Have you paid too much? Well, at the end of the day, you were wanting to get the Alex Isak sale done. He was not happy at the club, which was causing unrest. And, you knew the kind of money that was coming in. And Stuttgart basically were happy to wait for the right offer. They'd already turned down a 60 million offer. So, I mean, that's football, really, at the end of the day. If you come in last minute, then you can't expect to be able to dictate the terms.
Has he got the ability and talent to become a £70 million player?
That's very difficult to say, because I think anyone who's been watching the Bundesliga over several years, quite honestly, he hadn't really been on the radar until this season. He was a 3rd division player with Elversberg. Horst Steffen, who is the coach of Elversberg, did literal miracles. He took a 4th tier club up from the Regionalliga all the way to the Bundesliga playoffs within 2.5 years. Along the process of doing that, he had incredible knack of being able to bring in really good quality players, quality talents on loan, and basically built up the Elversberg club, with a very low budget, which has surprised a lot of people how good he is. He's now the coach of Werder Bremen, which is obviously a very big club in Germany. Traditionally, anyway, they haven't been that good in recent seasons. But, I think there's good pedigree there. It's certainly good pedigree there, but we just don't really know, because at the end of the day, he's had one good season with Stuttgart. And I think the problem is that people are perhaps a little bit irrational in the current market. Basically everyone's looking for the next big thing. And I would say that, you've got one of the most exceptional coaches with Eddie Howe there, and just trust his judgment, basically.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people are dependent on, not just with Nick Woltemade, but a few others as well. And Eddie Howe's certainly got the track record to turn players into stars. I mean, there's a lot of debate about where Woldemade's best position is. Is it an out-and-out striker? Is it a second striker? Is it even maybe a number 10? Can you share any insight onto where he's best at?
Yeah, funnily enough that you say that, actually. I prefer him at number 10. I think he's ideally a second striker. He's got an exceptional first touch, very good at tracking back and recovering, dropping deep. He's got a fantastic work ethic, an incredible style, and 2 very good feet. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you've got a very disciplined and calm player who basically is an instinctive scorer, who's really good at dropping between the lines and very creative. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that you've got a lot more than you might expect. But again, the pressure shouldn't be on to be a one-to-one replacement for Alex Isak, who is, well, he's more in the mold of an Alan Shearer, really, a fox in the box, you know.
So what are his best attributes? I mean, you mentioned there his footwork and what have you. I've seen a few highlight reels of he seems to have good strength and able to hold the ball up. But is there anything above all else that stands out for you?
Well, it's hard to judge, really, because, as I said, we've only really had one season with him at Stuttgart. Again, Sebastian Hoeneß at Stuttgart is probably pound for pound the best coach, apart from Julian Nagelsmann in Germany. And, you know, they've got a very competitive squad there. They were in the Champions League a year ago. And at the end of the day, if he's managed to make Sebastian Hoeneß first team coming up from Elversberg, you know, that says a lot about the player. So, you know, you have got a very exceptional footballer there. He's got a very good personality. He's a disciplined individual. He comes across very, very well. And as I said, in terms of the playing, you know, he can drop between the lines, silky touch, creative, good, very exceptional dribbling skills. His sheer height means that he can basically break through a lot of defenders and so on, which I think, you know, it'll be interesting to see how he copes with the more physical game in England and some of the very, very big defenders that we have in this country, and you know, a history of playing a very physical game. So the Bundesliga, I think, is more technical, more creative. England tends to be traditionally, you know, a lot more physical, and you know, I think it's going to be interesting to see, because as you've seen, I mean, he's quite lanky. He's sort of the Peter Crouch of of the modern era. So it'll be interesting to see how he copes. But I mean, he's a bag of tricks, you know, and that's basically what, you know, something exceptional. Something, I would say, frankly, he's something exceptional, but he's unproven. It's just not clear yet. He's had one good season, and before that, he was relatively unremarkable, apart from a very good season with Elversberg in the third division. But I mean, you know, put it into context. I mean, you know, how many players from League One make it up straight into Newcastle United for 90 million within 1 year? You know, you'd have to probably be, well, there aren't very many.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe our viewers and listeners can leave some examples in the comments. So, like you say, I don't think there'll be any at all. When you watched him last season, he got those 17 goals. Because sometimes you do watch players when they've had that breakthrough season. You go, yeah, you know, he's got something for the years to come. There are other players you go, is this kind of a one-hit season wonder sort of thing? I mean, again, it's hard to judge. We don't know. But did you get any sense of feeling that actually he's here for the longevity when it comes to scoring at the top level?
Well, I think again, I'd slightly hesitate to put my hand in the fire for that one. I think that you know, he's a player that has got exceptional skills and can be a big contributor to the side in a very creative way. Personally, I would rather have seen someone like Serhou Guirassy for signing for Newcastle for that kind of money. And you know, I'm a bit challenged to put my hand in the fire in that respect. I mean, it's very hard to know. He's an exceptionally talented player, a very good player, but he has had a relatively limited scope to be able to persuade the doubters. And I think, you know, it's very, very difficult to actually put your finger on it, you know, at the end of the day. I mean, where I was incredibly impressed is I watched the Euros, the under-21s Euros, which were obviously won by the right team, Lee Carsley's team, for the second time in a row. And why did Lee Carsley get a knighthood? My goodness me, he is doing such a good job. But I think, again, Woltemade was exceptional for the German under-21 team that got all the way to the final. He scored goals. He was very, very exceptional, an absolute standout player. So, again, I mean, he's shown internationally. He's got 2 caps this season for Germany already, and he's very much got an eye on the World Cup squad for 2026. He's in the squad again for the 2 autumn internationals this week. And yeah, I mean, I think it's partly necessity, but I think it's also just to do with the fact that he's a player who's in form right now, who is basically on everyone's radar. So, you know, you've got a very, very good player there, but I mean, it'll be interesting to see how he fits into Eddie Howe's system at Newcastle.
Yeah, put on the question then. How will he handle the pressure that comes with A, moving to Newcastle, B, coming for such a price tag, which is a record fee, and then see the Premier League. I mean, they're three big challenges for a young man.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, I was in Newcastle a couple of weeks ago, as I said, and I mean, I've never, apart from Dortmund, I've never known a city which is more in love with its local football team, and people just wandering around the middle of the week without there being a game in the Magpie Strip and stuff. And it's such a football city. So from that perspective, he's going from Stuttgart, which there's a big passion for the VfB, and I think that he's going to be made incredibly welcome, obviously, in Newcastle, and I think that's fantastic. Nick speaks English well, which I think is really helpful. There's kind of a mixed bag, because if you look at it, in the past, players like Michael Ballack, for example, did very well at Chelsea. But then Bastian Schweinsteiger, who was an absolute legend at Bayern Munich, didn't do well at all at Manchester United. And so it's kind of difficult to know, like with German players, how well they're going to fit in. I mean, Timo Werner at Chelsea is another one that didn't really work at all in England. I don't think it worked particularly, so it's just difficult to know how German players are going to fit in. German coaches tend to do very well, as we've seen over the years, but it's just difficult to know how well German players are going to fit in. So I think it's, we'll just have to see what comes of it. In terms of the Champions League, well, I mean, Stuttgart were nowhere near Champions League this season. And I think, obviously, if Nick, as his stated goal is to play in the German team at the World Cup, he wants to get that kind of level of top exposure. He has to get that level of exposure. So at the end of the day, whilst it's a new territory for him, I think it's exactly where he wants to be. And, he can rise to the occasion. He's the informed player right now in Germany, I would say.
Final question then. What can he achieve? I mean, what does maybe the next year to 2 years look like, do you think, for Nick Woltemade at Newcastle, and, of course, a wider picture for Germany?
Subject to not getting injured, obviously. I mean, obviously, there's a trajectory there which can continue. Nick hopefully will be able to keep growing into the player that he's becoming. He obviously needs to improve. Ironically, for a player of his size, I think what is he? Almost 2 meters tall. I mean, that's pretty exceptional in the Premier League. I don't think anyone else is that tall. He needs to prove his work with his head. He's not that good at scoring. He hasn't scored many headers. I think he scored 1 header last season. So, yeah, I mean, you've won some silverware this season, and I think that can continue. Again, you really do need that out-and-out scorer, and it'll be interesting to see how well he'll actually do in the Premier League. So I think, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but I think it's a big challenge. You've had what every single team needs this season, this past season, which is that out-and-out scorer, and 25 goals a season in the Premier League is no laughing matter. So it's difficult to say. I think, Nick Woltemade is an exceptional footballer. He brings creativity, and he'll be opening up spaces that most people didn't even know existed. So it'll be difficult to say, but I think it's a very good buy, but it's just difficult to say, basically, what his long-term perspective is. And, yeah. Well, success. I wish you every success. It's a lovely football club, Newcastle United, and I'm looking forward to seeing them playing the Champions League against Dortmund again soon.
Yep, fingers crossed we get through that next knockout phase and we meet again. But thank you, Ben, for popping onto the podcast and providing the insight into Nick Woltemade. To you guys watching and listening, hit thumbs up, hit subscribe, get into the comments, leave a rating and review as well, and I'll be back very soon.